First World Order Radio. Finally, we are on the air. No doubt. All right.
There's always going to be somebody in the building on First World Order Radio.
We get on into some of that order consciousness tonight.
First World Order Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m.
We got to talk about what is taking place on the planet.
There's always going to be somebody in the building on First World Order Radio. First, we need to let you know we're going to be doing more shows, giving out more information on Wednesdays. Wednesday at 8 o'clock, we are now going to make this the hottest day of the week.
Preceding others in time, order, importance. The most prominent parts, voices, or instruments. Earthly state of human concerns in existence. An indefinite multitude, quantity, or distance. System regulates to bring about specifics in the group based on value and natural characteristics. Current radiates electromagnetistics of sound through the air, same as your thoughts transmits it. Preceding others in time, order, importance. The most prominent parts, voices, or instruments. Earthly state of human concerns in existence. An indefinite multitude, quantity, or distance. System regulates to bring about specifics in the group based on value and natural characteristics. Current radiates electromagnetistics of sound through the air, same as your thoughts transmits it.
You need to understand how magical this, something like this every Wednesday can become. So you need to start getting your calendar right, get your schedule right. You need to know our intention straight out.
All right, so, these clues are given throughout the various languages was to piece the puzzle of this ancient mystery school back together again.
And what we plan on doing, both of us, is bringing y'all some surefire dynamite. We're going to take this level up a notch. We're going to have stuff to do here. This is not just going to be about philosophies and theories, shit that works.
You have an activated pineal gland in which that produced this black chemical called melanin.
What we did was gave a hard line in the sand between the different definitions of esoteric study and exoteric study. Playtime is over.
Peace. Back again with First World Order Radio. Today we're going to do flip the script once again. This is part 2. It's the question and answering by Brother Panic to myself. All right, so before we go in, let's bring on my co-host, Brother Fahim Mel. You here, brother?
Doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Oh, well, brother. Very well, brother.
That's good. All right. We got Brother Panic coming in order. You here?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, what's going on, Brother Alim, Brother L?
Good,
How do you do?
Good, brother. Doing well, brother.
Right, all right. It's good to hear. It's good to hear the brothers back on the Thursday, First World Order Radio. We just doing how we do. We're going to actually come back soon, give y'all some more of these lectures. But this week, like last week, what we've been doing is letting Brother Alim tear it up. You know what I'm saying? Which is a natural thing. If you know Alim, this is normalcy. You know what I'm saying? He came in last week, put it down correctly. We did it in the format of Q&A, where I was asking him questions, and I have more questions for him today. And, Alim was taking some of these mysteries that we grew up with, which we thought were actual stories, we thought were histories, but turns out, they are metaphysical realities. And, it takes a genius such as Alim who spent a lot of time studying a lot of these particular Bible mysteries, which we heard all our lives in the form of these stories, and returning them back to their metaphysical reality. And so, that's what we've been doing. Alim's been doing that for a while now in his lectures. And, if you aren't aware of this, like I said, you are definitely shorting yourself in terms of your study, because you cannot study this material without running across Dr. Alim's work. Clearly, for years now, he's been lecturing. If you're new to the game, you can get a lot of his lectures that are even greater than what you have seen on YouTube from him directly. You can get them from dralimlbay.com, plus plenty of other items. But you can get there and hear some of these things. Like, one of the first things, why this is so important, because no matter who you are in this country, no matter how much you can sit around and talk about how much you hate Jesus, you still will force-fed religious information. And if you are conscious and you are seeking higher information, the first thing you must do is at least acknowledge that you're breaking the shackles of religion. So the most effective way to break the shackles of religion is not just to say, oh, it's not true, Jesus is a white man who never lived. That's usually basically you have to build. That's the first step. That's the disdain you build up. The same way the first step of consciousness is really starting to dislike white people. And then as you get more advanced in consciousness, you realize true consciousness has nothing to do with white people, but has everything to do with you. So in that context, when it comes down to destroying religion, instead of still hating religion and saying how much you hate Jesus, the best thing you need to do is decode and understand the origin or the concept of where these religious ideas originated from. Now, again, one of the best people doing that is Dr. Alim. And so I find it very important, and why when I had the opportunity to question him, these are the questions I came up with, because, again, he was very helpful in not only not just destroying religion for me, but helping me get over it. You get what I'm saying? To get past it, to go on to greater things. And you'll find those greater things lie beyond you saying, fuck Jesus, fuck whitey, and my melanin is just so wonderful. When you understand the concept of how to activate the melanin, that's when it really becomes wonderful. So we're going to keep on with what we were dealing with, because what we started to deal with, but time became short, was questions on the Bible. So we're going to stay there for a while with a few more concepts from the Bible, and I'm just going to bring up subjects that are standard in the Bible. So we're going to skip around to all these things that you've heard in a generalized sense as being absolute truth, and we're going to see how much Alim can break down of it, or the ideas, or point you to things that you can find breakdowns yourself if necessary. So if Dr. Alim Bey is ready, I'm ready.
We ready, God.
All right. Okay. All right, so I remember last week we were having a little bit of trouble with the sound until the end of the show. So if we have the same trouble, Alim, I'll remind you, because clearly people want to hear what you have to say in this case. So we're going to start off. We was dealing with the Bible in show 1, so we're going to keep on with that for a while. So a concept, we're going to start here with Adam and Eve, because what I've heard before, you always hear different things about Adam and Eve, and everyone likes to bring up that in the Bible, in Genesis, it says, let us make a race, or let us make man. And a lot of the context that they speak about Adam and Eve as if there was people, as if there was a group of people or someone that was there before. Then they said Adam and Eve was the making of the white race. And then the reality is, we know there is no two people named Adam and Eve, and so on and so forth. So what does Adam and Eve represent?
Well, Adam and Eve represents, let's put that into all the, ones which was God, who made man in their image and after their likeness. That symbolizes the 7 chakras. Okay. Go to the 101s, the 102s. It speaks about the 7 creative spirits, that was, that is, and forever will be. Those are the same within the ancient Kemetic script as being the 7 souls of Ra. Within the Sanskrit teachings as the 7 chakras, or the wheels of light, color, and sound. All right. So, or in your Bible, where you read about the 7 churches or the 7 seals that's supposed to be open, those 7 seals are nothing more than, once again, the 7 chakras, or the 7 creative spirits, or the 7 seats of light, which form your physical body. It acted as the template for the structuring of your physical body. In other words, the voice that in order to bring forth that stardust energy, in which that formed the physical body into existence. Firstly, it was a ghostly state of existence, and then the elements of earth, as we would say, took on or was impressed upon that particular ghastly ethereal imagery, in which began to start becoming a physical mass. So that's how all these things began. So Adam and Eve clearly represents the first organ in which that is formed in the body, which is the brain itself, in which that symbolizes the right hemisphere being a woman or Eve, and the left hemisphere being Adam. So hence Adam symbolically was the linear mind, while Eve was symbolically the holistic mind. And of course, the serpent in the garden symbolizes the Kundalini energy, which is a belief in which that got cast down here also with Adam and Eve, as they all fell from out of the state of paradise or heaven, as it is mentioned within the Holy Quran. So we know within the Kabbalistic teachings that Adam had a heavenly form prior to coming into the so-called physical, which is known as the heavenly man. That symbolizes the aspect of the mind itself. So the aspect of the mind being entrenched within the physical brain, which that forms, as we say, the conscious centers or the cells, in which that we are now the physical body that came from that template that we talked about earlier. So idealistically, that's what Adam and Eve symbolizes, is the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. Of course, we understand, too, that, Adam symbolizes the carbon atom, which Bobby broke down years ago, coming from one of the books by Peter Moon. What was the name of it? It was Pyramids of Montauk, in which that he breaks down 6 being carbon. And, of course, it says Adam was made on the 6th day, which is symbolically the 6th element on the periodical chart, which is carbon itself. And so, yes, Adam existed in that sense of the atomic structure prior to the red, in which that is known as symbolic to blood or life itself. Adam within Hebrew means blood, all right, or ground, particularly as it is being translated within Genesis 1. So we understand that's what that means. And then, of course, from that Adam came forth the evolutionary process, which is also symbolically to Eve, which atoms transformed, or subatomic particles transform into atoms, atoms transform into molecules, molecules transform into cells, cells transform into tissue, muscles, flesh, etc. So you also have those 7 stages of evolution or human transformation, and that's where Eve also is solid too.
So that ties into the 7 days of creation and all that.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. All right, there's a little bit complaint. This is your audio is a little bit shaky.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Okay, much better. Yeah. Whatever you're doing now is much better. All right.
Okay.
So Adam and Eve represent the left, right hemisphere of the brain, which is basically polarity, the feminine, masculine, the yin yang. which makes a lot of sense.
Because the seven chakras symbolizes the seven chakras represents the seven states of consciousness or the mind. So as those seven states of consciousness condense, or as that energy is brought down, acting as a step down transformer to form the physical body into existence, the brain is manifested first within the human body, which gives rise to the rest of the endocrine glands, the organs, and so forth and so on, as well as also is the template of, for the physical body itself was those seven energy centers. So all of that correlates to let us make man in our image and after our likeness. Hence the term template, or copy.
Right, so basically
of the earth. I was just saying copy of the earth because it's 75 or 3/4 water, so is the human body. Copy of the fact of the sixth element on the periodic chart being carbon, and then when scientists test the physical body, they say that we are carbon beings. So this is about, if we was looking at the Bible as a scientific book, then we can get more information from it as compared to as literal.
As a history book. Okay.
Right, as a history book.
So basically Genesis is basically the story of the not really the creation of the earth in a day-to-day physical way, but the story of the concept of creation within man, earth, in this particular reality.
Right.
Say that.
And when we go back and check the summary of the Bible itself, we see that it's derived from the Hebrew text, which is known as the Book of Coming Forth by Day and Night, or misnomer by E. Wallace Budge, known as the Book of the Dead. That's where it comes from. So when you read the Book of the Coming Forth by Day and Night, it goes into detail about Atum, A-T-U-M, emerging from out of what we call triple stage darkness or noon, in which that he symbolizes the light self, and from him came forth the Akkadite, which are the 8 deities, from him. But before that, what we've spoken of is Atum being Ra or Ray, which that produced first the 7 Elohims or the 7 souls of Ra. So it depends on what you read them first, in which that they add on another number from 7 to 8 to 9, back to 10, which is noon once again, so it's showing you not just a number system, in which that we know that English today uses the Arabic number system, which actually is ancient Kemetic. So all of this ties in.
So that's interesting. So basically, the Book of the Dead, or Coming Forth by Day, which is one of the ancient Kemetic books, one of the oldest. I mean, there's a few older pyramid texts and all the rest of that, but one of the most popular. And people tend to put all those books under one umbrella. But that the story of how Atum created this universe through masturbation and all that. Basically, Genesis sounds like it just hacked off of that story, and it's just another version of that same, another telling of that same story, our story, and just accepted in a different context. Makes sense, because now you have Atum, this lonely god who masturbated, and then you have Jehovah who did all this creation without a woman as well. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, makes a lot of sense. All right, now
and even in the Gnostic text, you have Adama, bro, who created his 7 children.
Right.
So
okay, right, got it.
The same tale told over and over again.
Retold. Okay.
Right.
Now, there's a few things with Adam and Eve that we always hear. Let me see if you could shed a little light on it. When Adam realizes that he was naked and ashamed after, in the Garden of Eden, then they got a fig leaf and covered his nuts. Is there any metaphysical understanding to that?
Yeah. Well, it was basically telling you a moral aspect. Is that the first thing in which that brings shame, is a realization of nakedness. In other words, an aspect of sexuality. When we start making sex something dirty, that makes us feel badly or ashamed. Just like you were saying about Atum masturbating, they translate that to, oh, you go blind from doing that shit,
Right.
So,
right.
You ain't supposed to be doing that. You ain't supposed to be touching yourself. That's a sin of God. And then they try to take you to the Bible where it's talking about Onan in the Old Testament where he's supposed to seed on the ground, but that wasn't through masturbation per se. That was through the sexual act, and he chose not to impregnate his brother's wife, even though that was the custom during that time period. And, of course, God, supposedly struck him down dead because he wasted his seed upon the ground. All these things are symbolic, talking about the science of Tantra or Taoism on sexology, which is basically mastering the science of not releasing your seed for a certain time period. Within Tantra, we simply circulate the energy 7 times, and then we release the seed. After we have extracted the energy from it, in order to regenerate the body, and then we release the seed in order to go within the woman. So that's actually what that aspect of the scriptures really talking about is actually Tantra, Kriya Yoga, or Tantra Yoga. Most people don't get it because they are wrapped up, in just the story form and just take it for what it is, as you said, the naked and the shame part. And then, of course, putting the fig leaf is symbolic to now what Masons wear, which is the apron, which is the covering of your manhood or genitals. Hence the term Genesis, in which that's talking about the genes, in which that is through your rod of life, thy staff and thy rod, which is actually the phallus of penis, which is also connected and related to the sperm going up and traveling up the stairway to heaven, which is also known as what we call the ladder of Jacob, or Jacob's ladder, which is the spinal column. Within the ancient Kemetic text, that is called the backbone of Osiris, which is called the Jid, or Jedi, as you can have within Star Wars. So all of that is talking about the illumination factor, and then, of course, the 33 vertebrae, Jesus dying at the age of 33, all these things are symbolic, but they're talking about essentially your physical body, your structure, and the things in which that occurs during the sexual act and what you need to focus on. In other words, if you are having sex, the first thing you must realize is that sex itself is marriage. Marriage is not $50 before the damn magistrate or judge who determines if you should get married or not, or if your blood, your blood plasma and shit matches, as they did in the old days. All of that is something is based on, on the understanding, of the mastery of the science of life itself. But they're trying to dictate their colorable law to you in the same time that that you have unalienable rights. Unalienable rights, which means that you have rights from God on which they can't dictate because, as we know, God does the thing. So you have to understand that to the fullest, the fullest, essence. As far as I'm concerned, that's what you really need to focus on. And so all of this really turns back to the human body, overall. No matter, all these stories you read, that's where it really turns back to. These are all metaphors for what takes place in the human body.
Human body. And it makes sense to be like in the context of this being a creation story. It sounds like he just realized too that he was a man. You know what I mean? Right. And then became naked, and then realized his nakedness, and that is something to be ashamed of. You know what I mean, as well.
Right, exactly.
So so them covering his genitals, it sounds like he just realized he was human now.
Right. God came down into the garden in the nice breeze of the day, and found them, and and here he is asking, who told you that you was naked? In other words, how did you gain realization of this?
Right.
And of course, he got to say, well, the serpent, told me. The serpent told me.
Right. His Kundalini is making himself aware. Making himself aware.
Self-awareness, self-responsibility told me. But at the same time of self-awareness, self-responsibility, he was still ashamed about them knowing it. So which one is
ashamed about what he has actually become? You know what I mean?
Right.
What he has actually become. Because, which is the next stuff we're going to get into, the Garden of Eden. Like, basically, there's that saying, ignorance is bliss. So he was in bliss until he became aware. It's just like us, like conscious people. Most of these niggas is walking around here in bliss. You know what I mean? One day they're going to be motherfucking wheezy and life is getting better and, you're getting your GED, it's going to be fucking, that's all you need to get and all this shit until you become conscious and you're really out of a certain level of ignorance or a certain level of bliss, which is only really amounts to hope. You know what I'm saying? We're living on the hope system. You grow up and somebody tells you could be president, and then when you grow up and you ain't shit, you think your kids are going to be president. It's not like my times. And then when your kids grow up and move next door and they ain't shit, you transfer that hope into your grandkids until you die. But that's a form of ignorance and bliss. Unless you become conscious, then you know the reality of the world that you're in. Right. How sinister this shit is. Yeah, on a certain level. Yeah, because we need to be clear on this too. These meanings have many different layers and in many different contexts because they're allegory. They're not actual history. So if you're looking at it as history, you're looking for one definition. You get what I'm saying? Either you did it or you didn't do it. That's history. But if you're looking at allegory, a moral to the story, mythology, and all these things wrapped up in, is left to your interpretation. That's why so many people interpret the Bible to whatever fucking agenda they need. You know what I'm saying? It's you got whole gay churches that say that gay part don't mean what it means, and then you had slave owners who said in this Bible is the absolute justification for enslaving black people. Then black people said, well, we're going to use this Bible because it's a symbol for our freedom when Jesus come and all of this thing. So because it's allegory, so we need to get the concept of contradictions out of our mind. I should have said that in the beginning. So there's going to be many layered meanings depending on what work you're trying to do, because that is getting information from symbols. Because remember, the ancient Camites wrote in symbols, and we just said Genesis came from ancient Kemetic writings, which were symbolic, which means a symbol tells 1,000 words. So it's no one story, depending on what you're doing. So we need to get that out of the way when you hear many different stories on one thing. All right, so which brings us to...
Yeah, let me say this too before we go on, guys. In that same story, we have Adam blaming Eve, actually saying, well, God, you gave it to me, which actually is morality. So when you're dealing with morality, we're dealing with morals, we're talking about that he denied or he was being irresponsible. So that means that one of the things in which that caused our fall, from higher consciousness, was the fact of us denying ourselves of who we actually are. In other words, when we just, Jeffrey Osborne or what's the other group where they always saying we're only human, same type thing.
Oh, we're only human, born to make mistakes and shit, right?
Man. Right. So here we go with that same mentality, and so here we are, denying the spiritual aspect, the higher self, and we just rolling with the lower self, the human, physical, material portion of ourselves, and this symbolize, the denial or the irresponsibility, no longer wanting to be responsible for us being gods. You know what I'm saying? The goddesses walking the planet, but instead wanting to be humans, where we had to beg the God for forgiveness and so on, when God exists within us the whole time.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. And it makes sense now if we understand this is the creation of man And basically, on a more metaphysical level, man's predicament, man's scientific predicament in this reality. When you hear now Eve created the first sin, it now seems like instead of an actual sin, they're talking about polarity. It seems like now they're making the point when they say there was a tree of life and a tree of knowledge, and one was good to eat off and one was bad. It seems like now they're making more of a point of polarity than actually, because we know there's no such thing as good and evil. One man's good is the next man's evil. So we know there's no such thing as that.
Mm-hmm. And so we see the tree of life and the tree of good and evil, or what is called the tree of knowledge, symbolizes nothing more than the spinal column. At the top of the spine symbolizes entering into the Holy of Holies, which is the sanctuary, which is the brain, where the mind resides at, the soul resides at. And we go there, in order, when the Kundalini raises up with us, we go there, as it ascends or resurrects or whatever term that we want to use, because this is all terms in the Bible for it, to become illuminated, and then when and the energy descends and goes down, then yes, this is where even Adam and Eve, where it says, it's in Genesis, the second, going to the third and fifth chapter, it's that Adam and Eve knew each other and conceived.
Alim, your phone is going out a little bit, Alim. We want to definitely dive into what you're saying. Okay, I hear you a little bit better.
You hear me now?
Much better.
Yeah, I was saying is that Adam and Eve now symbolizes, the book of Genesis says that Adam knew Eve and can see. So knowing each other is so sexual. Okay, so we're talking about the knowledge.
Hold on, man. We're getting a lot of skips in your phone. A lot of is dropping in and out. Because we gotta hear this. It gets better, but it sounds like an internet connection thing, or if there's a lot of programs open or something, it might be taken away. It's taken away from because it's dropping in and out. We definitely need to hear what you talk. We definitely need to hear your science.
All right, let me see if I can close some programs out here.
Yeah, okay, because even now you sound much better. Yeah, you were sounding much better, and I know you were talking about how the tree of life corresponds to the spine.
Mm-hmm. Right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Much better. Let's hope we're just trying to get it to stay on that level.
All right.
Okay.
I was saying is that the tree of life and the tree of good and evil, or the tree of knowledge, as it is called, symbolizes the spinal column, in which that when you look at the spine, you will see the vast nerves, or what is called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, which are the nerves themselves branching out of the spine into the various organs, the endocrine glands. That looks like a tree. So as the Kundalini energy comes up the tree, it symbolizes what we call the tree of life. But as the Kundalini descends down the tree, it symbolizes the tree of knowledge and good and evil. So when we look at, in the Bible, it talks about Adam knew Eve and she conceived. It's talking about when the energy comes down the spine, as the sperm also looks like the spinal column, and as the sperm goes up the spine to receive the spark of life from God, or as the nectar, or from the soul force embedded inside of the pineal gland, it comes down the spine to reside within the testicles to be good forth into the woman. Hence, that is the symbolic to the tree of knowledge and good and evil, which actually is talking about your Genesis. That's why it's mentioned in the book of Genesis, which is your genes themselves, the carrying on of your genealogy, which is your blood lineage. That symbolizes the knowledge of good and evil. The play of man on this world, or in this particular third dimensional state in which that man battles daily, mentally, emotionally, back and forth between doing what's right and what's wrong. So that play is told right there within that particular instant when it says that Adam knew Eve and she could see. Because knowing and knowledge is one and the same, and it's talking about the sexual experience itself.
Now, we also know that Eve is the initiator of basically Adam. Is there any science to that? Now, when I've always heard it, I just always took it because, and again, as I pointed out, these has many different meanings depending on it, that the feminine side, because which she represents, a negative polarity, is the key to your magical apparatus. So that's where the knowledge or the secret lies, to actually have to wake up, to line up more, I should say, your left side of your brain so it could it could actually work for the right side. You know what I mean? As opposed to shutting it down.
Right.
So did you have any other thing that you studied that came across that metaphysically points to why Eve is the initiator or the feminine energy, I should say?
Right. Well, we know that when you look at the story in ancient Kemet, Tamari, or as we would say, Egypt, we will find on the walls, in particular at the temple of Het-Heru, it shows you the hieroglyphs of what is called Aset Mary, which becomes the Mary of the Catholic Church, and which they call the Mother of God. That is nothing more than a form of Eve. So when we look at Eve, she is the epitome of the life principle. I know within Hebrew is Hawa, which means life. All right. Even God's name, within Hebrew is Yahweh or Yahuwah. So that means Hawa is nothing more, just like within the Kabbalistic text, it states that Shekinah is the feminine face of God. So within your Bible, in Ecclesiastes, it says that wisdom is she. So wisdom is symbolic to she, so feminine aspect. Within the
wow, that's interesting. Because in Gnosticism, Sophia means wisdom.
Sophia.
And that's the great mother in the Gnostic concept. That's interesting.
Right, that's one and the same. So what is all of that? Right. All of that is nothing but the Kundalini, the serpentine fire. All right? We know that because Jesus himself said, be gentle and doves, but yet, he said he's going to be like Moses in the wilderness and lift up the serpent. He also told his disciples, be yet gentle as doves, but yet, what is it, smart as serpents.
Serpent. Smart serpents, right.
Right, intelligent serpents. So, a wise is serpent as it is translated. So, wise and wisdom symbolizes female, and then it says as a serpent. So, the serpent and the woman became synonymous. So, now that's why it says that the serpent and Eve tricked Adam, because the serpent and the woman became synonymous. This is why you will see in ancient Kemet, you will see also on the walls of Het-Heru, you will see the image of Sata. Sata, if you just add the N, becomes the word Satan. And Sata, if you continue reading in the pyramid, not the pyramid text, it's the mirror text, which is the pyramid text. If you read in there, it states that there's a prayer or a spell in which that you would say to become like Satan, which to become immortal. Now we understand that, as we were given the illustrations of information there in Atlanta, Georgia, a few weeks ago. We showed how
the sound is cutting in and out again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Whatever you do when you do that, it sounds great, but it sounds like it's dropping, and we're missing some of the stuff that you're saying.
Right. I was saying is that when you read about Sata, it speaks about how by repeating this particular spell, you can become immortalized like Sata. In other words, Satan, which is the word Satan, was never negative in the ancient Kemetic belief system. As a matter of fact, in Arabic, the word Satan or Shaitan, as it is called within Arabic, Shaitan means a thing of clay. Now, we understand that Adam was made from clay, all right? Even on the potter's wheel of Canaan, he formed the Ba and the Ka, which was of clay. Now, the Ba means soul, Ka means spirit, symbolize the fact of the union of the spiritual soul in the physical body itself, which is a thing of clay. Now, so as this thing of clay is being formed, it means that your physical body, and Brother Bobby broke this down already years ago. He was saying that the Titans and the word Satan is one and the same. It's talking about actual destruction of your physical body, right? So, Satan is your physical body. That is the thing in which that fell from the celestial elements, which is stardust energy from the explosion, which a star, that's how actually it was formed from, was from stardust. And as that stardust condensed, it drafted the rest of the elements in which that we see on the periodical charts to condense, and which that formed the physical body into existence through the male and female. So we understand that is how that transformation takes place. When male and female come together, there's a vortex in which that opens up at the point of orgasm, and when the sperm hits the egg, the sperm tail breaks off, and the head of the sperm goes through the egg shell and unifies with the nucleus of the egg, and it blows up to the equivalent size of it, and then it begins to go through what is called diffusion, I guess you can say, or in which that it begins to go through the genetic changes, in which that at that point a vortex opens up, in which that draws down the heavenly principle, which is the soul principle of man, and which that it embeds itself within, like I said, the first organ, one of the first organs in which that is formed, which is the brain itself. The heart is also formed, soon after, around the same time or soon after destruction of the brain. There's a portion of the soul principle in which that also goes within the heart, in which that links. Matter of fact, it's in the right right chamber of the heart, in which that there's an atom, a seed atom there. This is within the Rosicrucian teachings. It says there's a seed atom there that is in the heart, in which that actually links and connects what we call the ethereal or the silver cord. And when that cord is cut, of course, the soul is released from the body itself. So there's a direct connection between the soul in the brain, as well as that seed atom within the right ventricle of the heart itself.
Okay. Okay, interesting. All right. Let me see. Let me think. Is there any more Adam and Eve that jump out? Well, I guess we can move on to the concept of the Garden of Eden. And I guess we'll bring it back to Adam and Eve, what it would mean for them to get kicked out of that Garden of Eden. So the question is, I guess, is what is the Garden of Eden on a more metaphysical level?
The Garden of Eden is symbolic to infinite consciousness. And how we know that is because even Jacob, when he wrestled with the angel Uriel, and the angel Uriel hit him in his thigh, at that point, he said, that he seen God, he went to the land called Penal, as a pioneer land, and he seen God face to face. So that means that his lower nature had to be quenched. That's why Uriel hit him in his thigh or in his lower nature to quench it. And then from that time on, Jacob's name was called what? Israel. within the Hebrew, Israel means to ascend to God. So that means that his kundalini being hit in his thigh caused his kundalini to raise up his spine, which is to ascend to God, which is, of course, when we say God, we know the word God comes from the word good, which is a German word, but we trying to give this for those in which that now
in the Bible context.
The word Neteru or Neter or Elo or Elohim or whatever term. But we're trying to,
we're trying to put it in this context. Yeah, we're putting it in this context.
Right. So we know that this energy traveled upwards, and so it's the same concept, with everything that we're talking about, and it's based on the raising up or the resurrection, which is that 90-degree perpendicular level, as is taught within Freemasonry, of that serpent. Traveling up the spine, and and Earth, Wind, and Fire have been trying to tell people that since 1977. At least Maurice White has, in which that the serpentine's fire, and there's no coincidence that about 10 years ago when I was still on MySpace, it was writing me and thanking me for putting this information out.
Right. They've been trying to show black people this type of thing since black people been, red light grinding. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Dancing, watching Dolomite. They've been saying this.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So I guess for folks like that, it would be interesting or relieving to see brothers teaching that. You know what I'm saying, to masses of people. So y'all need to understand how lucky y'all are to get this information for free, actually. And like I said, you know what I mean? But same time, Dr. Alim and myself still have bills to pay like everybody else. So that's why we sell our products and lectures and all those things. So before we go on, I'm going to take the time to say y'all need to visit dralimlbey.com. There's plenty of information, his upcoming dates. His calendar is up there, and plenty of product information. And I know you guys need it because I get emails every day about a whole bunch of shit that you can't get. Candles, chakra stones, crystals of all sorts, all of that stuff Dr. Alim sells, plus a lot of magical items.
Right.
So y'all need to see Dr. Alim L. Bey for not only what I'm talking about, but plus much more on his site and also his classes. You need to get involved in that. I think he has plenty of testimony. He has a page on his website with plenty of testimony up there about people who have taken his class. So it's the thing to do if people are seeking tools to help them in their transformation. And, of course, in fact, with the help of Alim's queen, Kadira, she helped hook me up, and I launched my website finally, which you guys should be familiar and easy to remember because if you went to my YouTube, which is Occult Lectures, the website is now occultlectures.com with an S. So you can reach me at Occult Lectures. I'm starting now to put up all the products, all the information about the products, more and more information. Let me know what you would like to see up there. I'll be happy to put it up there. So I'm slowly but surely building that site, occultlectures.com, occultlectures.com. You can always still email me, panicpack@hotmail.com. Now you have the option to email me or go to the website and you can buy the Panic Pack directly. It's up there. We got the Ganesha crystals, the oils, magical powders, spiritual baths, meditation CDs, my classes, all the information you want to know is one click away, occultlectures.com. And, of course, like I said, AlimLBey.com, where you can get more information, more tools to help you with your transformation. All right, so now that the commercial's out the way, we're going to get back to the action. So we were talking about the Garden of Eden. Alim was breaking down some of the concepts of the Garden of Eden. And I also heard you talk about...
Also, the concept of the Garden of Eden also symbolizes, like we said, infinite consciousness or stages of consciousness. What we call life consciousness is having the ability in order to be within gamma or beta states, like what we're doing right now. But when you enter into alpha state, theta state, delta state, then you're going deep into the different layers of consciousness. We say that the 7 stages of consciousness, you have interpersonal consciousness, intrapersonal consciousness, life consciousness, subconsciousness, superconsciousness, magnetic consciousness, and infinite consciousness. So Adam and Eve symbolizes these different states. For example, Adam symbolizes what we call life consciousness, being aware at gamma or beta state. Eve symbolizes going deeper. The word Eve symbolizes darkness or sub. In other words, us symbolizes
as an evening, as an evening where we even get our night from.
Right, as
word
an evening, night, exactly. So now you have pierced the state of consciousness and going into the subconsciousness and the deeper levels of that until you reach infinite consciousness. That's why Eve symbolizes the right hemisphere of the brain, is because that's the holistic portion of the brain. But you'll be more so of the abstract, and more so of, the which that brings the
knowing, the knowing, the intuition, and clairvoyance type state, right? Now, that's interesting because this comes to mind now because there's a story that before Eve, God sent Lilith down to marry Adam, but she was she was too powerful for his dumb ass.
Right, she didn't want to be released.
He had to send.
Right, that was symbolic to the fact that the conscious mind wanted to be more powerful than the conscious mind, which it actually is. So Lilith symbolizes through that aspect. He just symbolizes the different stages of that aspect of Lilith. Lilith symbolizes the whole subconscious, superconscious, magnetic, infinite conscious levels. All those levels is what Lilith is.
The primal version of Eve, or the primal version of the feminine energy, which he needed. Exactly. But Adam, it didn't have any place here with Adam. It couldn't unite with Adam as his other half.
Right. Exactly. Because it was too deep.
So he had to get a more subtle version, basically.
Right.
To convince him. Right. A more subtle version. The same kind, and you can see that the same kind of way that even men now need their women to act a certain way for them to even accept them as women. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because a woman ain't walking through the door going how much dick they like to suck and then raise your kids. You're not going to be like, wait a minute, she sucked too much dick if you're sitting around my house. You know what I mean? So you want her the way you need her, the way you need her. We actually need our women, or the ones we find as our wives, a certain behavior. Otherwise, we like, nah, I can't fuck with her like that. I can fuck with her, but she ain't coming home with me. You know what I mean? She's too much for me. You know what I mean? So I could see where your conscious human thought would say, well, I understand why she sucks dick and she's a goddess and do as thou wilt. But still, you know what I'm saying? They don't be coming home kissing me in the mouth with that shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because you're still having a human experience, and you like, each time you go, well, I'll be right back. You go, I know she go to suck a dick. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you can't. So I can see. So now it makes more sense when I hear the story that basically when Lilith was his first wife, but she was just way too powerful for him. So he got a do-over with Eve. And basically,
Eve. Right. And notice when they tell the story about Adam and Lilith, how Lilith, it was a sexual position in which that, Adam was going to, do missionary on her, and she was like, nah, I ain't being up underneath you. So, it's telling you that that sex starts where? In the brain. So it's telling you where this whole thing starts at.
His mind was about control.
Right.
It wasn't even balanced. His mind was about controlling her. Just the same way we just discussed. Most dudes think they're getting a good woman, but it's really a form of control. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Just
usually
like the left hemisphere of the brain
can control.
Right. The left hemisphere of the brain attempts to control the right hemisphere of the brain. And it does so because the major principle in which that enlightens the right hemisphere of the brain has not risen yet, which is the mother principle, which is also symbolic to Lilith.
Right,
you know?
definitely. So and she does have a connection to the root chakra like Adam, because she's the goddess of blood. The goddess of blood.
The goddess of blood. Right. And the root chakra, which is symbolic to Adam. Adam means blood. Lilith, the sacrifices of children. Well, what's the children?
Yeah,
the
which is the menses.
Right.
The sacrifice of children is like you would have a child if you didn't have your menses. So Lilith is connected to the menstrual cycle, which is why they define her as the killer of children, because they only talk about the blood.
Right, and plus children can't be born when the menses is on. So it's the killer of children.
The menses is on, basically it was the sacrifice of Lilith. That's in the mythology.
Exactly.
That's what the menses comes out to.
That's the mythology.
Right.
So niggas just trying to speak code and shit, so be happy.
Right. Lilith is your friend. And they kind of showed it in I think it was the 4th or 5th season, whenever they're up to of True Blood, they did a whole season of Lilith. And how they did it was because you can find the truth of Lilith being in early versions of Genesis. What they did was say, well, Lilith was the first vampire goddess, the first Bible before this Bible. They tried to put it in that context. And they still connected her to the blood. She was a whole vampire goddess. And they connected her to the blood. And really that's basically the root chakra. You know what I mean? And that's what Adam was. Now putting it in that context makes so much more sense about if you're looking at it in the first context of they're trying to talk about the balance of masculine and feminine through this whole story and how it's coming together and how it's actually conflicting and the roles of masculine and feminine in these situations makes a lot of sense. So then it almost answers its own question, as I was going to ask Adam and Eve getting kicked out of the garden. But if the garden now, as you pointed out, represents different states of consciousness, and them becoming the ultimate man and the woman is just telling you that they're actually falling from consciousness. Because when they became naked and ashamed, their next step was getting kicked the fuck out. Which is basically, we said that's them saying, well, I realize I'm a man. Right. I realize that I'm a man, then I do not exist on that higher states of consciousness without doing the work to get there now that I'm on Earth. Makes some sense. Now, so the Garden of Eden, let me see, I've heard...
let me say this too before you get to that question. You have long-term memory and short-term memory.
Right.
That within itself shows you the entrance state and the exit state of those different states of consciousness. All right? So long-term memory, short-term memory. Those two. The long-term memory symbolizes the evolution or the Eve portion. The short-term memory symbolizes Adam. All right? Just like DNA, you have RNA, which is ribonucleic acid, and you have, which is actually symbolic to short-term memory, and you have DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, which is symbolic to long-term memory. Right? Now, Adam and Eve symbolizes those two principles too. And now that the DNA is being changed, all right, we're seeing an evolutionary state of what we call from Homo sapiens sapien to Homo Christos, which means the same as Christ. And Christ, of course, we broke down last week, is Christos, which means to be anointed, with actually the DMT, more DMT being excreted from the pineal gland during the times of wakefulness, in which that is producing the psychedelic miraculous miracles or healings and so forth and so on. These things are going to become more pronounced in this day and time based on the astrological alignments in which that is taking place upon this planet. And this is what the ancients was talking about, of the time in which that would come of this new earth and new heaven. We're going through that right now.
Okay. Interesting. So that transformation Okay, so now that makes sense because it seems like now, in this context of Adam and Eve, that first process of Eve bringing this fruit or this light to Adam, who is basically the ultimate description in human being, and Eve the description of a human, but with this knowledge, which is just the right brain. Just she seems like she has the method for enlightenment, and Adam is short-term memory, which is he forgets easy, and her being long-term memory, she's remembering these things, and her represent negative polarity, darkness, and bringing it to Adam, which means light, or bringing it into the light. So this process, and it's something I've been always talking about, well, it's not about being dark side or even light side. That's a process of bringing darkness in the light. Out of darkness comes light. So Eve representing darkness, even in Genesis itself, saying out of darkness comes light, represents the same process of us going into the feminine side of ourselves and eating off the fruit, or being offered the fruit from the feminine side, and bringing it back to our humanity to better our humanity, or Adam, if you will. It seems like that when, if we put it in this same context, that this process is going on, and what you're talking about, the changing of the DNA, is this same Adam and Eve process, the same. It wasn't like one event. It seems like it's the same offering and taking of this fruit that Eve, or the dark side or the feminine side of yourself, keeps giving you, keeps feeding you from the dark side.
Exactly.
From that tree, which is the spine, which is Kundalini, which is the snake, which is Kundalini. So from your Kundalini enlightenment or your Kundalini work, it keeps bearing fruit you can say in the pineal or in the brain. It keeps bearing fruit that we keep biting. Your humanity keeps eating off of to keep getting fucking enlightened. And if you say in the Garden of Eden is levels of consciousness, you're basically in and out different levels of that garden. You're getting kicked out into greater and greater realities. Mm-hmm. So it's like getting kicked out of the garden is going to the next level, basically. You get what I'm saying? So my reality may be a certain level of consciousness, and we could call that my garden, let's just say. But then getting kicked out of the garden is actually getting kicked out into another level, into another garden. You know what I mean? Into another level of consciousness. That's fucking interesting. It seems interesting that the way you putting this shit, y'all don't know. Alim be putting this shit where you can get this shit. All right, let's keep going then, so we can get the bang for our buck on this show. Let's get to Cain and Abel, which is their kids, and this big fight between Cain and Abel. Of course, we know it's polarity, but let's probe it a little bit. So Cain and Abel. Abel gives a good offering, and Cain just beats this nigga up the head. What's that all about metaphysically?
Well, remember, Cain had fruit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You see the fruit, connection, and vegetables from out his garden.
Mm-hmm.
Abel had animals, for which he sacrificed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the animal being sacrificed is somebody to your lower nature being sacrificed. So he being hence, higher, than Cain. But Cain, name within Hebrew means king. Okay? And remember, when you look at Malkuth, all right, on the tree of life, Malkuth is the lowest sphere, but it means kingdom.
Okay. Right.
Now, interestingly, where the angels reside at, within Arabic, is called Malkuth. Okay? So, Malkuth, we think it is in heaven, because sex does start in heaven, or in your brain, in your mind. And that energy is brought down. Malkuth transformed from on high, and the pineal acts as a step-down transform of that energy to reside at the prostate gland for the man, or at the uterus for the woman, all right? In which that becomes Malkuth, all right? So, as you said, it's nothing but different state polarity, all right? Cain with the fruit symbolic to a king, all right, which That's what he is actually. Cain is king within Hebrew. Now, means vapor within Hebrew. Hence the breath. Now, he gave his animal sacrifice. Hence, it's telling you that through the breath, you can sacrifice your animal, which is your animalistic nature, by maximizing the breath. Cain hit Abel in the head and transformed him actually, or literally, if you want to believe it as far as a historical thing, to a vapor. Right? Same thing with Jesus saying, I give up the ghost, okay, in the New Testament. But in this particular case, Cain was put a mark on his head for hitting Abel in his head. He had a mark on his head, all right, so that no one would kill him. Now, of course, we got to think about, well, who else? Hell, based on the story, it was nobody but him, his father Adam and Eve.
Right,
on the planet. So who in the hell is going to kill his ass? And then they have to put this book on him so nobody kills him.
Right.
Of course, you don't know what that means, because the mark is talking about, once again, the soul being embedded inside of the pineal gland. That's the mark. That's X marks the spot. All right?
Okay, gotcha.
And, so Cain symbolizes where the soul becomes incarcerated or incarnated into the physical body itself. Hence, he symbolizes being hit in the head, with that mark, as well as also he hitting Abel in the head, which symbolizes the breath. We know that when the child gets spanked on his ass by the doctor, it takes his first breath.
He breathes.
Right. Hell, and that first breath activates what? The soul.
Right.
So the whole thing is being played out through the first breath, initiating the soul into activation.
Okay. Damn.
Wow.
Okay. Your phone was getting a little bit shaky, and we want to make sure we hear everything too. It was sounding good.
All right. Can you hear me? Right, did everybody hear that?
I can hear you.
Okay.
We basically hear. I just didn't want to go out. We basically heard what you said, but we didn't want to go out.
Okay.
So that leads us to Canaan, based upon Cain's name. How does that correspond? How does that fit into this picture?
That's actually symbolic to Malkuth again, because remember, Canaan is the land of milk and honey.
Right, the kingdom.
All right. Now, there's two chemicals that is excreted from the pineal gland, particularly, which is called serotonin and melatonin. And guess what? The color of melatonin is white, like milk, and the color of serotonin is golden, like honey.
So the land of milk and honey is the pineal gland.
You got it.
Oh, it's the pineal gland. Okay.
Right, which is X marks the spot.
Which is the mark of the soul, which is on top of the head of Cain.
Exactly.
And some of the activation is its brother is basically Abel, the breath.
The breath, exactly.
Interesting. All right, and I think
so check this out. Cain is also related to the word Khan, K-A-N, Khan. All right, and we know that the word Khan within the ancient and teachings is the serpent. So we know that, right? Remember, right? So remember, the serpent is what is able to transverse between Malkut, the heaven, which is the kingdom of above, as well as also Malkut, the lower, which is the heaven below. In other words, the serpent, which is Cain or Cain, is the only one able to traverse those particular polarities.
Interesting. Interesting indeed. Okay, makes sense, because Star Wars, they have the Wrath of Khan.
The Wrath of Khan. That's right.
Which is Cain. And in the last one was interesting, and maybe I'll talk about it more, and I've talked about it at the time. They did a lot of pineal references. For instance, he had 72 of his crew that was in deep sleep throughout this whole show. And we know 72 is the number of chakras on the pineal gland. And there was just a lot of, if I go back and watch the movie, because at the time I talked about it, but there was a lot of references to this Khan, especially in the new Star Wars, being connected to the pineal gland. So that's interesting that you say Khan and Cain is the same thing, and Cain being connected to the pineal now makes sense. And we need to know this is not a mistake because Roddenberry was an occultist, and that's the guy who created Star Trek. And the boy who did Star Trek now, J.J. Abrams, he's also an occultist. He did Super 8. He did that show Lost, and he had two more occult. He has an occult show out now, and he had one more occult show and one more occult movie. So he's definitely an occultist. So it wasn't by mistake in Star Trek. And remember, in the first Star Trek, which was done by J.J. Abrams, he did all that shit about the red matter, which is real occult all the way through. I broke it down at the time, but I'll forget these shit. So that's interesting to see how this thing all plays out and how they have this play with words. And I'm glad you're saying this because I've seen a couple people tell me how worthless dealing with the etymology of words is. And I'm like, shit, you can just deal with the etymology of words and be a fucking master just off of that alone if you're dealing with the origin. Right. Now, I heard you in the lecture gave two definitions of words. The one that, and I'll describe the words that you use, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The description I got was one was the actual meaning versus the meaning we understand it today. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Right. You have cognitive and you have denotative. Denotative.
Say one more time. You were going out. Say one more time. You were going.
Denotative. Right. You have denotative, which is actual origin of the word, and then you have cognitive. Cognitive is the origin of the word in which that we now have to be. Like, for example, the word nice. We know that nice means who is, real kind, polite, and so forth, so on. But the origin of the word nice is someone who's different.
Hold on, say it again. Your phone was going out really bad, and we need to hear this.
Right, I was saying. You
started talking about the origin of the word nice.
Right, I was saying, like, for example, the word nice. The word nice, as we now know it, is someone who is kind, polite, generous. But
that's our cognitive understanding, right?
Right, that's the cognitive meaning of it. But the denotive meaning of it, the origin of it, it means someone who's ignorant.
One who's ignorant.
Right. So
if I say nice, basically the true meaning, and we need to understand that when the ancients created these words, they were putting a spiritual, they were factoring the spiritual meaning. So when they created the word, they were putting spirit in it. So the word meant what the fuck it meant. Ain't no, well, that's how we use it now type shit, and it doesn't still have the same original intention or spiritual impact on it. So I just wanted to get that out the way, but that's interesting. So the word nice, as you were saying, meant ignorant.
Right. So
Wow.
who's ignorant, who gets taken advantage of, right? And this is an Oxford dictionary. And older Western dictionaries.
Right. So basically, dealing with the true etymology or the true vibration of the word, you could actually become enlightened through those means. Do you have any good books? Doesn't Blacked Out Through Whitewash? Doesn't Suzar Epps go through a lot of this?
Yes, she does. That's an excellent
book. Do you have any other books? Do you have any other books you could recommend for people? Because I think if them understanding a lot of the origins of these words will go a long way. You know what I'm saying? Nigga being one of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The word nigga being one of them.
Oh, yeah, definitely with that word, right?
Right. And I was wondering, did you have any other good references or good books people could look up to kind of, get into it? If not, the Suzar Epps books is I know it's sufficient. He has more than one, I believe, too, with the same name.
Yeah, I know. You can also go online. It says online etymology dictionary.
Right. Okay. Right. Which is a website that I use, online etymology dictionary, and it goes very hard.
Right.
I think it's one of the.
Right.
I think it's a good thing we should factor into our study, because you get the original vibration or the original intention, and really you get just the way certain words are corrupted gives you a lot of knowledge as well. The word demon, for example, you get what I'm saying?
Right.
And then after that, what is it? Gematria, where they do the Kabbalistic numeration of words and numbers.
Right. What we call numerology nowadays. Right.
What is numerology now is gematria. So you'll find out things like, what they tell you is each word has a numerical value. And if the numerical values are the same for a word, then the word means the same hands down. Ain't no doubt about it.
Exactly.
And the example they always give is the word serpent and the word Messiah and the word love. I think it's love and unity have the same numerical value. Therefore, it's no question, there's no debate. They mean the same thing. So the word serpent and Messiah mean the same thing. And if you understand if you can understand that concept, then it give you you could move past debates. You're out of the someone said this and someone said that. So you're dealing with you're cutting with the source. You're getting straight to the source information, and you're cutting all the theories out when you start dealing with etymology of words, gematria, simple shit that you could do and you could find online. And there are plenty of books, I'm sure, if you go on Amazon, you could find. You get what I'm saying? So I just wanted to put that out. Now, I want to talk about why we at Cain and Abel a little bit, why, because it deals with the subject kind of close. When they talk about the people of Ham, and then they'll say Ham, the Ham tribe is black and they got cursed. What metaphysical information do you have on the people of Ham that we hear so much?
Right. Well, the word Ham, which again, when you go back to the origin of it, it means, within Hebrew, it means Ham, which means black, which is also the word for Kemet, which is black lands, which is, the term, for ancient Egypt. So people of Egypt is called the Hamites. All right. And it was essentially Cushites. Now, what happens is that you study about Ham and this so-called curse, it came through the child of Ham, which was the fourth son, which was by the name of Canaan. All right. So Canaan, allegedly is what turned, quote unquote, turned white. But even in that tale of that curse of what they talking about, Canaan, I told you, we just broke down to you that Canaan symbolizes the land of milk and honey, which is the excretions of melatonin and serotonin. Now, continue on, you will find out that the pineal gland, as it stopped producing enough melatonin, or melanin, through the melanocytes, and it is said that through fear, which is through extra production of adrenaline from the glands being produced in the body, and the deficiency of vitamin B6 and vitamin B12 is what is called vitiligo, or albinism, and that took place, and that is the curse in which that transformed from Ham, which is black, to being Canaan, which becomes that curse, which is talking about that albinism, which begins to come into play. So you have so-called black people who now looks like, they have white skin, light eyes, yellow hair or blonde hair, but you still see their facial features, their phenotypes is still that of melanated Cushite being. Now, what happens is that that's what that was really talking about, and that occurred after the last ice age, which was around 2,000 years ago. But when you start getting into the leprosy, and you start getting more so into the curse, the real curse of what took place, which is with the Albion being permanent Albions, and how we know this because based on Gary Mendel's, he has what is called the Punnett Square, in which that you have Big B, Big B, Big B, Little B, Little B, Big B, and then Little B, Little B. Big B, Big B is dominant superior. All right, well, Little B is the recessive. So it's telling you that if you have 4 children, one of them would have recessive genes. All right, so like, for example, if you have 2 albino Nubians, all right, or 2 albino so-called blacks, if you had them together, if they had children, the child, one child would have dominant traits and would not possess any recessive traits from them whatsoever. It would be totally black. Then you have the other 2, it would be Little B and Little B Big B, which would have the traits, but they would be black. Also, but they would have the traits of their mother and father.
Basically pass it on.
Right, would be passed on. Look just like mother and daddy. They would be albinos too, or albino too. All right. So that is the curse in which that is taking place, and what they're talking about the land of Canaan. It's talking about the deficiency of melatonin or what we call melanin being excreted from the pineal gland, and not enough of it going into the melanocytes of the skin, in which that turns the skin from black to white or pale. That is actually what they're talking about, that land of Canaan. That's what they're talking about. Essentially, right, through that process. But we know that somebody else had to have tempered even further on with the genealogy, of these so-called Nubians and albinos, because the European himself can't change back to black no matter what he does, unless he mixes in with us and it comes out later on through the gene. But if there's no mixing in with us, then he stays as he is. So that means somebody had to have tampered with the genealogy. If you want to say that he came from the Nubian albinos, then he will have to show, the disconnection or the connections between the 2. And he has not been able to do that because here we have the Eskimos, still yellow skin, as we were saying, still living up in Alaska today, coming forth from the Bering Strait, coming from out of Russia and China, coming across into Alaska, and it's still yellow skin today, still dark skin or yellow skin today, brown skin, yellow skin today. And so, and they've been there for nearly, after the last ice age also, for 10,000 years. So, we know that the theories or the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, Clarence 13X, as well as also of the Moral Science Temple of the Noble Drew Ali, we understand that they had that there was some tampering in which that definitely took place, and these particular schools actually hold those keys of secrets. They have it encoded, Yaku, as they would say, the Yaku, messing with steel, the sun and so forth and so on. They tell you everything that is taking place, but they saying it in a coded type of way. But when you start breaking down the story, you start making sense. There was a Bobby spoke about this years ago too, is that during the 15th dynasty of the Hyksos, there was a actual pharaoh whose name was called Kukur. Right? And during this time period, he ushered scientists to start doing certain things. And then you start reading the book of Hermetica by Walter Scott. It states in there that the Egyptians said that the worst thing that we've ever done was create man in our image and after our likeness.
Right.
So we understand that is the lineage of what is taking place, in which they talk about the original curse, which was actually the losing of melatonin or melanin, I should say, within the melanocytes, in which that eventually changed us to having vitiligo and to becoming albino.
Okay, makes sense. So that was the original concept of the curse.
Right.
of leprosy. Okay, makes sense.
Right.
All right, so let's move on to, you always hear this story about the giants on Earth. There were giants on Earth, and I believe they were children of angels. Do you have any science on that?
Yeah, well, when we talk about angels, we talk about angels of light. We know that certain angels of light, when it hits the pituitary gland, can cause what the scientists call a malfunction, in which that causes an individual to become old. In other words, they can grow many feet. The tallest structures or fossils in which that being found is actually of human beings being as tall as 36 feet tall. Right? It's talking about the historical origin of Freemasonry by C.W. Ledbetter. He was like the right-hand man to Andy Besot. Right? C.W. Ledbetter, he stated that the Pygmies, which is the people at one time, were these tall beings who grew as tall as 36 feet tall. But certain climate changes occurred on the planet in which they caused them to shrink. What we gather from that was that, from my research, is that there was meteorites in which that bombarded the planet, in which that caused volcanic activity, in which that occurred, in which that caused the sunlight to be blocked and a lot of dust in the sky. And what happens is that forced these to go behind the waterfall into the earth. And being that they did not enough sunlight, over the years, they began to shrink in size.
Hold up, Alim. Your phone is going out just a little bit. We need to hear you a little bit better.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, much better.
All right. I was saying that they went behind waterfalls, different and went into the center, into different areas of the earth. Because of being that in that direct sunlight, they began to shrink and statue. Now, of course, we know that the Twa people are the oldest people on the face of the planet. All the books said that. You get the Primordial Signs and Symbols of Man, written by Albert Churchward, and you get the Children of Mu, written by his brother James Churchward. If you get Ancient Egypt and Light World by Gerald Massey, who they were students of Gerald Massey. You get Valencia Stratton book, Celestial Ship of the North. She says it, as well as also within her other book, I think it's called The Fraternal Builders. So if you get these particular books, they all state that the Pygmies are the oldest people on the face of the planet. There's another book in which that is called Gods of the Ancient West, in which that states that the Twa people on this planet at least 30 million years. Right? There's another book written. There's another book by Forbidden Archaeology, written by Michael Creemore, in which that states that humanoids, all right, been on this planet at least 2.8 billion years.
Damn.
So when we talking about these people, this is who we talk about. And at one time they was tall, because they had to be tall because of the dinosaurs on which that walked the planet. So after the destruction of the dinosaurs, there was no need any longer to be that tall. So nature, as it does, adapts. They over the times, and of course we still have people which that still get up to 7 feet, 8 feet tall, so forth and so on. But never again to that height in which that we once were, which was 36 feet tall. Then you find others 24 feet tall, and then you keep finding them shrinking 18 feet. Then 12 feet, 9 feet, 7 feet, and then 4 feet. So they keep finding these particular, fossils that shows our, decreases.
Okay. All right, interesting. All right, there's a story about the Tower of Babel that we're going to talk about, because it's basically about all these motherfuckers trying to build this tower to God, and he strikes them down, and they all speak these other languages. That's how different languages got on the planet. Like, niggas will say, grown-ass people believe this shit.
Yes, they
how
do.
different languages got on the motherfucking planet.
Yes, they do.
Motherfuckers can still speak English from the South and from L.A. and sound like two different motherfuckers. Like the Goody Mob used to talk. We didn't know what the fuck they was talking about. Yeah, son, nigga, right there, down there. Like, nigga, that's some Tower of Babel shit for your ass. So we know that's got to have a metaphysical meaning. Have you did any work on the Tower of Babel, this story?
Yeah, the word Babel or Bab-Elion, the word Bab in Hebrew means gate. The word Elion means high or heaven, in which that is referring to the constellation Orion, actually, the man upstairs, as he referred to as. So it's talking about the gateway. Now, you know that within Orion, it has a nebula in which that gives birth to stars in the constellation Orion. So that's the gateway. That is what it's talking about metaphysically, that our source comes from. Right? So when you're talking about Babylon, that's really what it's talking about. And when you look at it also from another esoteric point of view, you will find that scientists have been able to do what is called fragmenting. They fragment the brain. And what they've been able to do is compartmentalize the brain. And you have people who can actually never trained in Russian, but they can speak Russian. You have people who never trained in French, but can speak French, or never trained in Italian, but can speak Italian. The reason why is because that proves that you have a past life, and you also have an ancestral data bank. All right. So not only do you have a past lives, which you still have access to, as we talked about, which is at the back of the area, which is called the medulla oblongata, but you'll have ancestral DNA, which is what is called giant molecules. That's what DNA actually is, in which that also activates and open up, in which that give you access to lineage, as we said, 7 generations on your mother's side, 7 generations on your father's side. So they give you access to these particular languages. So that's what it's talking about, is that when the Kundalini comes up the spine, that's what actually is the Babylon. And remember, in the New Testament, it tells you what that Babylon is actually the Holy Spirit. This is why you hear niggas in church talking about humming, and all that. Babbling. Right, but that's coming from the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost, which is the serpentine thing coming up the spinal column and illuminating portions of those brains in which that they don't use on an everyday basis.
So basically, that's what science is talking in tongues, that everybody is sitting around this motherfucker thinking they're doing something divine. I'm glad you explained that, because I get that question all the time.
Right, go to 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter. It tells you give 9 fruits of the Spirit. It tells you that you have the gift of speaking in tongues, the gift of interpreting tongues, the gift of miracles, the gift of healing, the gift of knowing, which is knowledge, the gift of praying, the gift of miracles, and the gift of understanding. So these are the 9 fruits of Christ, and it's mentioned right there in the first Corinthians, 12th chapter. So yeah, that is nothing more than being able to speak in tongue. In other words, a tongue which you never taught or learnt, but you have access to it because you are a byproduct of your ancestral lineage, as well as also you have your incarnations in what is called your oversoul, which your medulla oblongata is connected to. So you have access to those particular languages, and that's what it's talking about, is that God came down to the languages. In other words, you lost accessibility to the mouth of God. Because remember, we broke down the Lord Babel, you must have a mouth. And remember, we told you that the mouth of God is the medulla oblongata, or occultism.
Right. So the opening of the mouth ceremony.
The mouth of God was shut closed. Hence, you got the confusion now, because it was shut closed. But we can open it up anytime that we want to, and that's by the resurrection of the Kundalini. That's one of the first places that the Kundalini hits. Once it comes up the spine, all 33 vertebrae hits.
Basically, the true way to build the Tower of Babel, actually.
Right, that's true. Right, that's true. Right, exactly.
You broke that, so you just broke that mystery, because there's a lot of people who email me and ask me, well, if, what's the speaking in tongues? That's one of the things people can't get over in religion, because it seems most people, no matter how far they're out of it, they seem to think that's a phenomenon. Now, my answer was always, well, people are there having a Kundalini experience and not being able to handle that Kundalini experience. They're just babbling, basically. They're basically speaking out, but the way you just broke it down makes so much more sense when you show you that there's actually a story on this speaking in tongues, which is the Tower of Babel. Now that shit just, when you connected those two, that shit lit everything up for me. That makes so much motherfucking sense now when I hear this motherfucking story. Of course, when they say tower, you know it's a Kundalini story, but I didn't connect that motherfucker speaking in tongues was about this. Real interesting. Now, activated OMAC asks, so we have to activate DNA in order to remember a past life. Now, Alim talked about this last week, and it's important, so I think we should speak on it again. He talked about the medulla oblongata, so I'll let Alim talk about that if you're still asking that question. And you can hear more on that in last week's episode. We're going to make that available to you guys soon. So, Alim, past lives, how do you tap into past lives?
Right. Well, the Taoists, when they study Qigong and they do their practice of Tai Chi, they've come to the understanding that your past lives are stored in your medulla oblongata, which is at the back of the head, which in the Hebrew teachings is called the mouth of God, as well as also within the ancient Kemetic teachings called the mouth ceremony.
Opening the mouth ceremony, right.
Right, open up the mouth ceremony. It's talking about how to tap at the back of the head 25 times, 3 times a day. Tapping at that area, you do what's called scarification. And it gives you the ability in order to not just access your past lives and your oversoul, but also give you photographic memory. So that is the area. And so that's why the Kundalini hit in that area is so important, and actually resonating that energy there. Matter of fact, one of the symbols within the Hebrew, which is gulp, is of an axe. So actually, when the Kundalini energy comes up and hit the medulla oblongata, it sounds like a thumb noise. You actually
now they also call the medulla oblongata the reptilian brain. How does that tie into this?
Right. Well, the reptilian brain, if anyone reads Nutricize or African Holistic Health by Dr. Laffer, he breaks down the fact that there's 12 centers on the reptilian portion of the brain, which is called melanin centers. These are the 12 melanin centers. So these areas are there at the reptilian portion of the brain. So this is what is illuminated. And within the European, he states there's only 2 areas in which that is activated out of that. All right, as compared to all 12 within us.
Okay. Now, see, with a reptile, basically, most reptiles are known to be highly adaptable to whatever surrounding, as if they're tapping into something primal. So, for instance, you could throw a reptile in a new situation, and it tends to adapt immediately, as if it could tap into something from other lives, past lives, or past, as a collective being. You get what I'm saying? So, like that, when you see reptilian behavior, and you're talking about tapping in the medulla oblongata to tap into other aspects of yourself that's actually been on the planet. So you may find yourself in a new situation and know how to adapt, or like a chameleon, blend in and work based upon you tapping into the medulla oblongata. So I can see when they say the reptilian brain, because the reptilian brain, they said, doesn't go past. Why they call the medulla oblongata is because our medulla oblongata is the whole of a reptile's brain. A reptile's brain doesn't go past the medulla oblongata, while it's the first circuit in our brain. But basically, if you look at a reptile's behavior, they're the most adaptable creatures. That's why they've been here almost the longest, and it makes sense because they've been here the longest. Right, they're one of the oldest motherfuckers here, so it makes sense that the reptilian part of our brain represents the oldest part of us. You know what I mean?
Right.
So to tap into it like a reptile, I can see why it has the nickname and it corresponds. To tap into it is to tap into that ancient part of you the same way on Earth the reptile represents that old adaptable animal that's been in it's in every damn environment in some context, in some form of incarnation, which is we can tap into. So that's interesting. So activated.
Those 12 centers also symbolizes the 12 disciples of Jesus also. All right. So, like when we're talking about, when you go to the Bible, Matthew the 10th chapter, the 2nd to the 4th verse, or Mark the 3rd chapter, 14th to the 19th verse, and they give you the names of the 12 disciples or the 12 apostles, that all correlates to the 12 sites in the brain. So Bobby always talks about the substantia nigra. Remember that, which means black substance. It's actually like, I think it's like the 11th in the chain of the brain stem. It's called neuromelanin nerve tract. And if areas are stimulated properly, I think you get Parkinson's disease. That's where you get a lot of the aluminum accumulated at in the person's brain, like what happened with Muhammad Ali. You know what I mean? What happened with what's the little white boy from back to
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox. Exactly. That's what happened with them. Right, that area in the brain, they lost the neural in that, in which that puts that disorder known as the Parkinson's disease. So you have the substantia nigra, you have Lotus coeruleus, in which that Bobby always talked about, which is actually called the black dot. Right, this is where Brother Black Dot get his name from, which is the mental neuromelanin tract. Right. You know, this is what gives you the ability to astral travel and projection, you know, as well as soul travel events. This helps you also recall your dreams. The area is stimulated properly. It helps you restore and record your dreams. Those two areas in the brain, or the areas in which that is normally activated within every one of us. But then you had the other ones, you know, you have the what's the name of them? The Brocchius, Spinal the subclavius, the nervous trigeminus, the mesopaphydius. If I'm, you know, then you have the pontus auratus, the trigeminus, you know, the mollius, the dorsal motor, the retroventriculus, and the botulus. You know, so those are the other areas, and all 12 of them correlate to what we call the 12 disciples allegorically. So when those 12 disciples are activated, it can move up into the lamb, which is the pineal gland, in which that 12 pair of cranial nerves sits around it, in which that pair means 2, in which that, you know, of course, 12 times 2 is 24. Hence, the 24 elders that stood around the throne of God and worship God day and night, which is about the soul and stuff that in the pineal gland. So all of that is talking about the human body again. You know what I'm saying? In these areas, in these major areas, they gave you stories of these the names behind it, so that when you're awake, you will understand that it was still concepts about yourself. Of course, this is only at the highest level of decoding. For many, they're stuck at For many, they're stuck at the story. You know what I'm saying? And get caught up in that story. Right. And oftentimes I just leave them stuck in the story.
Right. The Sunday school level of the game.
Right. The Sunday school level. Right.
Okay.
Because
let me say
once they stuck in the story, they can't possibly understand that.
No.
Right. They're not even open to the understanding of this. So they feel like got it. You know what I'm saying?
They're not.
One thing they're proud to tell you details of this story as if it's a form of learning. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I think, Alim, we might have to come back again next week to do a third show because there's still many questions. If you're down, I'm down.
Yeah, that's good. We can do that.
Okay, all right. So let me let y'all know we'll be back with part 3. Again, we're still going. We're going to go into the lights until they kick us out off of Blog Talk. But just so everyone here knows, before we start getting kicked off, we'll be back next week to pick up. There's plenty more questions, and you guys can send on Facebook any questions y'all want to hear Brother Alim break down metaphysically. But we still got much to talk about: manna, golden calf, Ark of the Covenant, River Jordan, sun standing still, David and Goliath, King Solomon, Jonah and the big fish. We still didn't get to the Moorish law, and if we can get in today. Before we get cut off, I want Alim to talk about some of the things in his classes so y'all can understand how he empowers you with this information. More than giving it to you in a lecture form, he teaches you this kind of stuff and more in the form of a classroom setting, which is a whole much more powerful than what you can get on a Blog Talk show. So that's where you guys want to allow your interest. Of course, Alim does his classes. You can get with him for the schedule. And as y'all know, I definitely do my classes. And now is the time. I'm about to start a new cycle. So if you're interested in my classes, now is the time to get in. I know Alim is going to start a new cycle soon. So now is the time to get in. We both have payment plans for our classes. So y'all need to inquire. What you have to do is email me, panicpack@hotmail.com. Or now you can take your monkey ass to my website, occultlectures.com. That's occultlectures with an S.com, occultlectures.com. Or you can go to Alim's site. You can link to Alim's site from my site, or you can go directly to Alim's site, dralimlbey.com. And he has a shitload of items that you can use in your magical transformation. These are powerful, some rare, but very powerful, very important tools you can get from Alim. I know you need them because people ask me all the time, where can they get such and such and this and that? Well, you can get them from Alim. A lot of what I didn't even know Alim sold that people ask me for instance, particular candles and all these things, Alim sells it. What he told me was because what you may not know, he had a store in his area where he lives, and he just put his store online. So he's got a shitload of stuff up there for your magical transformation. DrAlimLBey.com, very powerful. And again, all my stuff, I'm in the middle of building the site. Y'all can look around. I'm in the place where I'm taking suggestions, the information you guys would like to see up there on my site, occultlectures.com. But you can get the herb pack, spiritual baths, spiritual powders, CDs, deity readings, consultations. All I'm starting with the consultations now. So there's a whole bunch of shit you can get by just going to the site. And if your monkey ass already been there and already went, then you need to help out from all this free information y'all niggas is getting and send our sites and information to other people who are new in the game so they have the opportunity not only to get information like you, they can help us with our products to keep us in business enough to give y'all more free information. Remember, the information you're even getting tonight, which we're going to continue with in a moment with Dr. Alim, is the benefit of years of studying. And we're not talking about clicking on YouTube. We're talking about years of buying books, years of standing in places, years of going to lectures and building other lecturers, years of sticking around, standing around, hanging around, probing, all sorts of shit that in this day and age, most of the internet people of conscious worth does not have to do. And that's fine. That's not saying no one is lesser, but let's understand and respect what Alim had to go through to even deliver something that's so fluid that you're getting tonight, which takes a long time for people to get through in their consciousness, right, especially when it comes to religion. So you need to respect and appreciate that, and at the same time, the products that him and I offer you are things that could help you. You're not buying worthless things. Even the products we help you offer you to sell still help in your consciousness. So you get 2 for 1 stone. You get to help us, and you still get to do something to yourself. Because let's face it, I know my products and the lean products, some of the things you can get to help you cost less than the fucking nasty-ass Chinese food that you're buying every night. So it's worth it, and it helps us to keep giving you, the information that you're getting tonight, which we're going to keep going. All right, so now that we got commercial number 2 out the way, we're going to keep going with the information until they kick us out of the building. And the next thing I want to talk about and ask Alim about is the story of Job. We hear the story of Job. The nigga was a baller, and then Satan told God, I bet you I can make this nigga fall off. Now, when I heard the story and his undeniable faith, I just it always made me think of this. They're really talking about the soul or this spark of light that's really unbreakable in us. And we can see the mere fact that we're here today listening to Brother Alim and Brother Panic is motherfucking the trials of Job. Because any nigga going through what we went through, right now we should all be listening to Wheezy and Nicki Minaj. But the fact that we need this, there's something in us that was not tempted or wasn't broken on one level. So we're going to get into what Alim has to add to the story of Job as well.
All right. When we look at Job, of course, we look at Job, and as you can see, neither I nor Brother Peck likes that.
Mm-hmm. Right. 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 I just filled out a disability form, nigga. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to do this right.
Our lives to this. Right, we dedicated our lives to this shit, so
right.
Job, what right? But anyway.
Right.
When you're looking at Job, I found some interesting things in it, astrological things, as well as also the fact of the story. We hear the story of Job, being a man who had, wives and much cattle and sheep and so forth.
Hold on one second, Lee, before you go into that. I want to say, if you guys are in the chat room, you might start getting cut off. Call in right now to stay in this conversation. The number is 626-414-3535. If you call in, you'll keep going. If you're just in the chat room, you might get cut off, and you have to get this on the download. So if you want to kind of stay on, you want to call in now before the phone lines close. All right, I'm sorry, Alim, keep going.
All right, so
you said
we know
Job?
The story of Job. Job was a man. He had a wife. He had hundreds and hundreds and thousands of sheep and lambs and cows and whatever else. So as the scriptures have you to say, tell you, he had herds and herds and herds. He had children, plenty of children. All right. So what we find out is that Satan, who supposedly was cast out of heaven, returns to heaven on his own terms, as we know of, and he goes up into heaven. And while the sons of God are praying to God, he walks between the angels or the sons of God, and he walks between them. He goes straight up to God, and him and God start having a conversation while the angels are still praying to God.
Right.
So God asked the question. He said, "Yeah, do you know my servant Job?" He said, "Yeah, I know that nigga. What about him?"
Right.
He's a good dude. I don't think you can corrupt him. He said, "Yeah, whatever." He said, "Yo, you give me terms and agreement, and I get at this nigga." All right. So I said, "Well, okay, you do everything you can to him except kill him." A word? Ha ha. All right. Let's go. He said, "Hold up, but you have to make him curse me." Oh, shit, I get that. All right. So thing comes back out. Now this is Satan walking up in heaven now. Just have a conversation with God with no problem.
Right. This is how it goes.
Right. And comes back down to God. I mean, it comes back down to the earth or whatever you want to say. Because as Christians say, Lucifer or Satan is the god of this earth. As we broke down earlier, Satan is from the word Satan, which is the serpent itself. So it's a form of Kundalini. The Kundalini raises through all 7 chakras. The crown seat, the God, which is embedded at, and the conversation between the cobra or / the serpent takes place with that between the soul itself as it's being awakened. And so that talk is talking about the awakening of man, all right, which is hence, i.e., the mind itself. So as the serpent comes back down, travels through the 7 chakras, that resides back at the bowl, which at the base of the spine. The imagery of having the wife, the imagery of having all these children, the imagery of having all these herds of animals is all talking about your animalistic nature and the children, hence the sperm, hence the lower nature itself, where all these things come from, which is fruits of life. Hence the term tree of life. Also is come forth from that area. You know what I'm saying? Essentially. All of this is talking about that from a more metaphysical standpoint. All right. So we later on in the story is that everything was destroyed. Satan destroyed his children, killed his herds, his animals, killed everything. Okay, and even his wife told, and Noah had 3 friends who came over too, along with his wife, and they all told him, saying, "Yo, son, why don't you just go in the curse God, and die?" And so instead of cursing God, Noah, what Job did was curse the day he was born.
Okay.
Right? Now, of course, right. So of course, I don't see any difference between that. However, he cursed the day he was born, cursing God. So when God found out that he just cursed the day he was born, and he cursed him, he gave him all of everything back, doubling and tripling it, or whatever else. He gave him back good wife, gave him back children, gave him back good friends, gave him back all the animals and that he could see. All right. So once again, we see that God is a genie who can grant wishes and also take wishes away. All right. We understand is that even when you go and do your research on Aladdin's lamp, you will find that the pineal gland symbolizes lamp in which that you rub, in which that produces this genius or this genie or this God in which that can do your wishes. But you can't do that unless the energy ignites with your pineal gland, which that is the rubber, which is symbolic to rubber, that particular area of the brain in which that awakens the gene, which is the Heru or the Buddha or the Christ within you, in which that gives you the ability to have everything in which that you can see, touch, taste, and smell. This is what the law of attraction is symbolic to. So now you can have everything in which that you once seen, touched, or smelt, before, and now you can have it more abundantly. All right. So this is what it's going to tell. Is telling you that internally you can produce all these things. However, you have to, as they say, curse the day you was born, which is actually symbolically talking about you have to murder your lower nature, yourself.
Right.
This is what is mentioned within the Holy Quran, Surah 7, as well as also within the 101 and the 102 of the Moral Science Temple. It speaks about how many cells are there. There's 2 cells. There's the lower self. The lower self is everything in which that harms. So you have to curse that side of yourself, the animalistic side of yourself, which that draws you down into just the animal nature. And by cursing that, then you can ascend into your higher self, in which that can make all things abundant, because it also says, well, what is the higher self? The higher self is the virtue, is the mother of virtue, in which that way, love, mercy, and right. Right? So that's what the higher self can bring you, is love. Hence, you got a new wife. Hence, you got new friends. hence he got more animals he can think of, more children he can think of. So hence that was symbolic to him having love more abundantly. He rolled with his higher self, as compared to him roll with his lowest self, which that would have caused more anger, which that harm, which would have meant him to God. All right, so that's what it's all symbolic to.
Okay, interesting. All right, so let's move from to manna from heaven. You know, we hear these Israelites and the devil what's his name in the desert. God sends down this manna, and I ain't yet to go to the store and sing manna any motherfucking way. What the fuck is they talking about when they talk about manna? We know if put it in, you know, you can speculate based upon consciousness, but we want to go based upon Dr. Alim's work on manna.
Right. Well, it was 40 years and 40 nights. The children of Israel, means to ascend to God, were in the wilderness or in the desert. And they was on their way to the promised land, as we would say. So in that desert, the wilderness, as Elijah Muhammad breaks down within his book, The Message to the Black Man, he tells you that the wilderness or the desert is talking about the human body itself. Okay? That's what that is, the symbolic. So here are the children of Israel, which means to ascend of God, and once again, and they are in this wilderness for 40 years, all right? 40 years. And during that time period, in order to keep them recharged, they had to eat manna from heaven, all right? Talked about last week that 300,000 tons of stardust energy falls to the planet Earth daily. And as melanated beings, we absorb our share of this stardust energy. Well, this is actually symbolic to the manna that fell from heaven. And so we eat the manna that falls from heaven to rejuvenate ourselves and to regenerate ourselves, revitalize ourselves, to re-energize ourselves, all right, or revitalize ourselves. So this is what the meaning of the manna falling from heaven actually is, is our daily absorption of these celestial rays and these cosmic rays or stars which that falls to the earth daily, which your wilderness or your desert, which is your physical body, must take in order for it won't be a desert or wilderness. What is it about a desert or wilderness in which that we first see? We see that there's nothing in which that what grows. So being that there's nothing that grows in the desert or in the wilderness, that is symbolic to now, as you take in these energies, this falls, this manna from heaven, now things begin to grow. Rejuvenate, revitalize, re-energize itself. So now you will actually feed the body what actually it needs, which is primary source of energy. That secondary source, which is from the food and come from the water, is the same source meaning, right? The first primary source is sunlight, cosmic energy, all right? Solar-phatic energy, what is also called manna from heaven, is also referred to as the Holy Spirit. Is also referred to as prana. It's also referred to as chi. Also referred to as ki. Also referred to as kokuna mana. That's how we know that it's the fall of manna, is because when you ask a Hawaiian about the word kokuna mana within their language, it means big energy, a big force. Or manna, M-A-N-A. Which is the same word in which that is used typically with the Hebrew of the word manna. So this is talking about celestial energy once again, and this is what we must take in, and that's what that story is about, in order to rejuvenate ourselves so that your body will be in wilderness.
Okay. Tight. Now you broke that damn mystery down, because I was in the store looking for manna. All right, so now I hear all about a couple of meanings. One of the meanings I heard for the golden calf was, you know, that the Moses and the Israelites blew this horn, and that was a symbol of the age of Aries. and why he's so mad at this golden calf story, because it was the age of Taurus, which they were coming out of.
Right.
Now, I also heard that, this calf is Horus, you know what I mean? But now they give you the, that's the Egyptian symbol, the Egyptians' false idols. When they tell you, when the real story, the false idol is actually the human body. You're not supposed to worship the human body. That's actually the false idol. The golden calf, I've also heard people say, well, it was actually Hathor, the feminine that they were raising up, and that's why Moses was mad. And I kind of tend to believe that if you believe it was real people. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But if you know these guys are all symbols, I believe the first interpretation that sounds more like it, that they were coming into a new age, and that they were talking about dealing with old age mentality in a new age, which makes sense. And I just want to briefly say, from the age of Aquarius into the age of Pisces. Age of Pisces was the age of believing, and the age of Aries is the age of knowing. So if you're still while we're in the age of Aries, that's why so many people want to know and are finding out a bunch of knowledge, because this is representative of the age of Aries, the age of knowing, where we just came out a whole bunch of motherfuckers believing in Jesus, which was the age of belief. So the real crime, if you still walking around this motherfucker with that in the age of knowing, where just the internet exists, fuck going to get any books. The internet exists and Wikipedia exists, and you still talking about I believe in Jesus. You are a true asshole now, because even my religious ass cousins, at least they at this point, they're like, you know something, I listen to Bobby Hemmett, and he's absolutely right. He would be better if he took his ass to church. So they're not giving it up, but they at least trying to factor in shit that they can't deny. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they're in the age of knowing, but they're holding on to the age of belief. Them's the motherfuckers at the bottom of the mountain making the golden calf. You know what I'm saying? When we rolling off the mountain, look, we got the new hot shit, son. This is that new shit. You know what I'm saying? Niggas like, nah, son, Jesus. We got that new hot shit, nigga, in the form of tablet. So in your study, Alim, the golden calf story, what have you come across in your metaphysical understanding?
Right. Well, like you said, it symbolizes that age of Taurus. The calf, of course, grows into a cow or a bull, and which then, of course, symbolizes Apis, which is the form of Osar, as well as also the feminine aspect of Osar would be Hathor or Heru. Which is talking about the age of Taurus, like you see. They leaving, like you say, they was leaving the age which that they was in this new, which was the age of Taurus, and the new age was in which that, of course, like you said, was the age of Aries. That's what that horn symbolized, was now blowing in the age of Aries, and as Aries came in, of course, as Aries going out, we had to come in Pisces, but in between we had the calculation of Jesus, in which that he was called the Lamb, which is talking about Aries itself, and then as he died on the cross, crossing over portion from Aries to the age of Pisces, now the symbol for Jesus is the fish. So now, not only is he called the Lamb of God, which is talking about Aries itself, but also he's now referred to as the fisherman of men. And so now you see Christians with this symbol on the back of their cars everywhere they go now. So that's what it symbolized, with the changing, as you said, of the old eon or age, which is 2,160 years, into a new age of 2,160 years, in which that all 2,160 years comes to 25,920 years.
The great year.
The procession of the equinox was that the sun traveled through all 12 zodiac signs. That is actually what took place, and that's what the cow symbolizes, the end of the Taurus, the beginning and end of the age of the Lamb, and as you said, of the blowing of the horn, which is, of course, as you see, the one that you can be pulled up is actually of a ram.
Okay.
And of course, as you see, so so I did agree with you, brother. That's exactly what I came across with, that makes sense.
Tight.
But even when you're talking about that's still as above. So now let's get it as below, because that's as we want as within. So without. So that's the without and as above part. Let's get the within and the below part, in which that the Lamb of God within human bodies, the soul embedded inside of the pineal gland. And so that age never changes. Only that changes is the story behind that. So, for example, before we called the Lamb of God, which is the soul embedded inside of the pineal gland now, we once called it, the golden age of what is called of Taurus, or what is called the golden calf.
Okay.
Now we refer to it as the man with the pitcher of water, which that pours forth the truth. The truth being the excretion of these particular chemicals, which is made up, which is melanin, and which that is put forth, or what we call quinoline or DMT, which is put forth in the body, and which that brings forth the truth. So now we call it. You go to Luke 22:10. You will see Jesus talking to his disciples. Well, what will happen with us, to us in the last days? And Jesus said, well, you will find a man with a pitcher of water in his hands. Follow him into his house. Shalali, the man of pitcher of water is nothing more than Aquarius. But the internal never changes. Each time that story is told over and over again is the fact of the soul embedded under the pineal gland, and that's what all those things actually symbolize. That's the internal aspect, which is even greater than just the astrological influences, which that I think gets caught up on, such as Jordan Maxwell. Jordan Maxwell can explain many things esoterically because he's so exoteric as far as
right. He explains absolutely nothing. He's excellent at shutting down the physical religious aspect and telling where it comes from.
Right.
But when it gets to the esoteric part, he's barren. He's naked and ashamed.
Right.
He's naked and unashamed. So let me let you know, guys, on part 1 to this discussion with Brother Alim, and there will be a part 3, is on YouTube. So what you need to search is Brother Panic asks Dr. Alim L. BEY questions, and you'll be able to find the first portion of this discussion is on Alim's YouTube, which is Asaru Alim L. BEY. You can search it, but either way, you'll be able to find that and much more discussions with Alim on his YouTube page for part 1. Part 2 will be there, part 3, and we'll see where we at if Alim's still up for part 4, because as you can see, we haven't really even scratched the surface of how deep we can go with just this subject. And this, we only talking about the Bible. So, we're talking to a guy who is well understood, I would say, in a lot of areas of this metaphysical thing we studying. We're only staying on one subject, something that he's actually covered in many lectures before, and in many deep ways. So, But we do understand there's a lot of new people who listen to these shows, so we always speak as if, I especially make a point of it, as if this is the first time you're hearing this information. And this in this way, we put ourselves in a position where we raise people up to get the thirst and the know-how to study for themselves. The true reason to raise people up, as opposed to just entertaining ourselves with saying a bunch of complex things, which the only people who get it is other motherfuckers who say complex things. So we're not interested in entertaining each other. We're interested in teaching people for real. So therefore, I have no problem putting myself in the position of someone who does not know and ask Alim these questions, because it serves a lot of people who are coming up and coming out of this and need this. I get on a daily basis a whole bunch of people who are fresh out the church, who thanked me, Brother Panic, because you said this, or I was getting out of the church, and you became a bridge to a whole bunch of other people that like to call themselves advanced. Now, I could play the game and call myself advanced and say a whole bunch of shit that will lose a lot of motherfuckers easy.
Right.
But that's not what I'm about. I know that's not what Brother Alim's about. It's about talking to the people. So that's what we're trying to do. So when you hear these type of lectures where, and I'm going to be real, we're toning it down, Alim especially toning it down because he's trying to talk to new people who are still struggling with their religious belief system, their mind control. You get what I'm saying? So now we have documented on First World Order a whole series of those who are still going through that mind control, something to bridge you into something greater than that shit you've been told in Sunday school. So there's going to be a part 3. If we get cut off, that's why I'm saying all of this. If we get cut off, you can hear part 1 on YouTube, Alim's YouTube page. Just search for Brother Panic Ask Dr. Alim BEY questions, and then you'll get what you need. That's where you'll see this, eventually see this entire series. So those who need to listen to it again or are hearing this one and missed the first one, that's where you'll find it on Dr. Alim BEY's YouTube page. And like I said, you'll probably be able to find it on his website, or if not, you'll definitely find other things you need at dralimlbey.com. Anything you need from me, you need to see my new website, occultlectures.com. A whole bunch of shit going on, a whole bunch of shit about to go on. Yes, sir? What'd you say, brother?
I was saying that you should also see that also on Panic's new website also, as well as also on his YouTube channel. So
yes. Okay, so I was going to leave it for Alim. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to put this up on my channel as well, but I can do that as well. But yes, it'll be there. We're going to start making this stuff available there because, quite frankly, YouTube is a little bit more reliable than Blog Talk is. So we're going to be documenting a lot of what we do there, and you know, because it's easy to find, it's a little bit more stable, and you know, we could do more with it there. It's a little bit harder to hear these things on YouTube, on Blog Talk, but easier on YouTube. Plus, you get a visual. Plus, you can come back and pick up where you left off. There's so many advantages to it. So start looking for us on YouTube. 9 times out of 10, the show name is going to be the same on YouTube. If there's something different, we'll be happy to let you know. But my channel on YouTube is Occult Lectures. Alim's channel on YouTube is Asaru Alim BEY. Or you can search, you just look for Dr. Alim, and I'm sure it'll come up. And if you have any problems finding it, you can always email us. You can email us at the websites, dralimlbey.com. Look for the contact. You can email me at occultlectures.com. Just go there, look for my contact, and send me an email there if you're having problems finding anything or need any help along them there lines. All right, until we get kicked out the building, we're going to keep going. And the next thing I want to ask about is the Ark of Covenant. What I see is a lot of information by William Henry where he talks about the Ark of Covenant, and he talks about it as, first and foremost, in his metaphysical understanding, the chest of Osiris or the pillar of Osiris, and then he talks about it as an apparatus, an energy apparatus. I can't remember, but what do you call it? He speaks about it as a capacitor, where it's just an apparatus that can store energy. Like a capacitor is, you have your power in your computer is a capacitor. It stores up energy, then it feeds energy to your computer, not directly from the AC, but it's from stored energy. So even unplugged, if you pierce that capacitor, you still can get an electric shock. So he's basically saying the Ark of Covenant was a capacitor, some sort of ancient capacitor,
which is nothing but the brain is the receiver, which capacitor, in which that you have in right and nerve system, which fires store and produces electrical currents in the brain. Those current converges upon the middle portion of the brain, which is the third ventricle. which the pineal gland sits over. You go to exercise on page 15, you see a galaxy-like cloud hovering over the pineal gland, which we refer to as the fourth eye, in which that give you access to cosmic travel and communication ancestors and much more. When the Kundalini raises up from the third ventricle to the pineal gland in the third ventricle, it beams the Kundalini energy up into that galaxy-like cloud. So it's like looking at stars beaming the sky. All right. Those electrical currents is what it's about. That's the Holy of Holies, which is talking about actually Holy of Holies, which is your head. In the third ventricle, you have cerebellum. Cerebrums, you have the cerebellums on which that hold and protected underneath that, towards the back, and up towards the third ventricle area, you have the cerebrums. The word cerebrum and the word cherubim within Hebrew is the same. All right, the word cherubim refers to angels. All right, just like there was two angels or two cherubims that was put with flaming swords outside the gates of Eden to keep Adam and Eve from coming back into Eden. That is talking about these two cherubims or cerebrums, on which that covers the third ventricle area, in which that protects it, and protects the individual. You know what I'm saying? An overload of electromagnetic energy. All right. So that means that cerebrums or the angels symbolize detection, in which that keeps you from getting overloaded with energy. All right. So yes, even that's what it's talking about. Even when it's dead, you know what I'm saying? When the brain is dead, it still is some type of electrical currents. Of course, we understand that as nerve current. And we understand that the nerves, you can cut a head off a snake or either off a chicken, and you can see the neck of you can see the head and neck of the body of the snake still running around, swirling around. You can see the head, the chicken body running around even without the head.
When the head cut off, right.
Right, even when the head is cut off. So that's what it's talking about. Still electrical magnetic conduction, which that is changed through the nervous system.
Just like a capacitor. Just like a capacitor. Right. Okay. Okay. God damn. All right. Shit. Damn. Now we get into it. Now, the River Jordan. The River Jordan. I know you talked a little bit about that in your lecture. You hear this. You hear the saying the story. You must be baptized in the River Jordan. So much so that niggas in churches, you can't make it into heaven unless you baptized. Nigga dunk you under some water. It don't feel right. You know what I'm saying? I seen a nigga get baptized in a motherfucking wheelchair. You know what I'm saying? They dunked the whole wheelchair in the shit. The fuck is going? This don't make no sense. I don't think Jesus was doing this. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. So the River Jordan, I know there has to be a metaphysical understanding of that, and I ask for your breakdown on the River Jordan.
Right, the River Jordan is the third ventricle that we just finished talking about, just cerebral fluid, which fills that chamber of the third ventricle. So the water or the cerebral fluid that's there, which is brain fluid, symbolizes the River Jordan. And how do we know that? Because within the Holy Quran, and also within esoteric teachings of the Gnostics, when they speak about Jesus symbolizes the sperm whore, which is the sperm itself. And as the sperm goes up from the prostate gland to the spinal column, from the prostate gland, from the testes, that symbolizes the Sea of Galilee. As it comes up through the Nile River, which is the spinal fluid of spinal column, and it goes into the brain, which is the River Jordan. It is baptized, as we would say, by the spark of God, which is actually the soul embedded inside of the pineal gland. The sperm receives the spark of God from that area, and it is baptized in the cerebral fluid, and then it travels back down from the third screw of the brain, down the spinal column, which is the Nile River, down to the Sea of Galilee to be good for. So that's what that is all symbolic to. Is movement of that spermatozoa, which is actually Jesus, because when you look at sperm underneath a microscope, you would see that light is emanated from around the head of the sperm, symbolically in Christ. Just like when you come out the womb, you suppose that light around your head, in which holy men call it a halo, or refer to it as a helios, which is the word sun in Greek and Latin. So that helios is actually the form of a halo is the word heru, which is heru. So whenever you see that sun that surrounds the head, it symbolizes the activation of the heru principle. And that's how we it's that golden sun that surrounds the head. Which that's supposed to be emanated. But it's made to those levels because they haven't mastered the Kundalini energy. Under the microscope, you can actually see the light inside and outside of the head of the sperm. And so all the sperm knows who the Christ is, because it was she that got baptized in the River Jordan. So all the others know who it is. And so they actually develop defenses, just like on a football team, in order to make sure that he can get into
the one with the ball. The one with the ball.
The vaginal canal, to go into the cervix in order to get into the ovary to produce that egg into manifestation that forms within the uterus of the woman. So they know what the job is. They already know. So they are there in order to make sure that he gets to that area. It's not a fight between him, she, and them. It's a fight. They already know who it is because she baptized a rebel in the Jordan. He's the one who got the most light, and that's the one who get formed into manifestation, in which that, i.e., you come back here as the Christ. The Christ exists within you. The Holy Spirit exists within you. God exists within you. The Holy Trinity is you. So now,
the chosen one.
You're the chosen one.
It'd be like the chosen one. Right.
And Alim Mustafa, the chosen one. Exactly.
Interesting. Damn. Okay. So it seems like a lot of these things is basically just talking about the human goddamn body.
That's
just about the inner workings of the human body. So we should be clear that this goddamn Bible ain't got shit to do with history, ain't shit to do with nothing but your goddamn self. The origin of these books. If we can, let's talk a little bit about some of the origins of the Bible. So, because most people think the Bible is written by one motherfucker or a bunch of motherfuckers starting from scratch. But we know a lot of these are based upon older books. Could you name some of the older books involved?
Right.
This should exist before this. Because people need to understand the Bible is either second, third, and fourth generation writing.
Right. We have the book of Ushia, spelled Husia, Ushia. You have the book of Pyramid, which is called the Pyramid Text or the Text. You have the text, all right? Portions of it is what is called the Perham Heru Sut, which is the by day and night, or what is misnomer, the Book of the Day, by E.A. Wallace Bunn. You also have the Sumerian text of the Enumi English. You have the Epic of Gilgamesh. And you have the Book of Etana, from the Sumerian text, which is actually like the Book of Enoch. You have all these books in which that storing the so-called Jews, as they would say, being in Egypt and then being exiled within Babylon, and them leaving from out of Egypt and Babylon. They took the mysteries of these particular schools and formulated the Bible as we now know it. This is what it said. But really what we're talking about is Arius Pisos, who was part of the Roman aristocratic family, and he took the teachings of the 72 rabbis, which was actually those from the Old Testament, and he put the New Testament together based off those same writers of the Old Testament. And also, he was related to the Ptolemies from out of Egypt, in which that he would go and do his research study there, in which that he had certain information from, in which that now becomes the play of the story called the New Testament. This is how the Old and the New Testament came together and came about. Was from these particular so-called rabbis and these Roman aristocratic families, in which that was also Jewish, or in their so-called bloodline, as it is said, and so we get the Bible today in the way in which that we have it. And of course, later on you got King James, who with Francis Bacon and William Shakespeare, who got the information from the Tinsdale Bible. From the Tinsdale Bible, you got the Septuagint, in which that was also the older version, the Greek Bible, which actually originated from the Hebrew threat. So you have that lineage going down the line, of course, and King James was so-called the Grand Master of the Lodge of England, and you had Francis Bacon, who was actually, who was called William Shakespeare, who was the 46th man on the council of 46, called the Shakespeare Council, who actually, which was, you had teachers from Oxford, from Cambridge, and from different other places there within Europe, which that was made up of that 46 person council. I should say man, because there was actually a woman on there too. But he was part of that council that produced, the Bible was written, the King James Version was 1604 to 1609, right? And then Shakespeare, Francis, as they would say, took over from 1609 and had it finished editing it by 1611. This is why we go to Psalms 46, as he being a 46th person on the team, as well as also being 46 years old at the time. He chose Psalms 46 to embed his name, Shakespeare. But then, if you count 46 words down, you see the shake. If you count 46 words up from Shalah, which means to worship, you see the word spirit. And then with all three paragraphs, you can see the word will, as in William Shakespeare. So that's no coincidence. It's based on
right. Ain't no
scriptures. Yeah.
That is no coincidence. Wow. I want to make sure that came out clear. Say that portion, please, for me one more time. It was a little bit shaky about William Shakespeare.
Right.
Just the part where they can find it.
Right. The Book of Psalms 46. Shakespeare had to be 46-year-old, or Francis Bacon had to be 46-year-old, happened to be the 46th person on the editing team of the Shakespearean Council up under King James. And if you count 46 words down, you find the shake. If you count 46 words up, from Shalah, means to worship within Hebrew, or Salat within Arabic, which means to worship, you'll find the word spirit. So hence you find the word Shakespeare. And then in the paragraph, you find the word will. Will in the first paragraph, will second paragraph, and will in the third paragraph. So symbolically, the three, symbolic to the three, the mind, body, and soul, symbolic to that, three, will. And then, of course, Shakespeare in between those three. So that is really left so you can pick out who edited the Bible.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So like you pointed out, that's not a mistake. They're telling you right there.
No.
So like just seeing that alone, how you can't even, that should bring anybody who says God wrote this fucking book. That should end that. You know what I'm saying? Just seeing just that breakdown alone, that should end that. You know what I'm saying? God's funny, but he ain't that funny. You know what I'm saying? He's funny for making you come here and take a shit and all that, but he ain't that fucking funny. You know what I'm saying? He ain't Tyler Perry level funny. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
and it's no question.
I guess why we
hear Shakespeare, Bacon had to have been the Rosicrucian. Matter of fact, the leader of the Rosicrucian in that time period. So here you had King James, who was the Grand Master of the Lodge of England, and Francis Bacon, I. William Shakespeare, leader of the Rosicrucian.
Okay.
Occultists at their best.
Okay.
You find King James with the book, Analogy. Analogy is King James.
Okay. Interesting. So, actually, then while we're here, before we go into anything about the Rosicrucians that you brought up, let's talk about Psalms a little bit, and why I want to talk about them, because even in magic studies, deep ingrained in magic, they'll have you do two things, actually. The 6th and 7th book of Moses, you'll find that in Botanicus, and you'll find Psalms in Botanicus. And a lot of rituals and spells involve those incantations using Psalms. So what's and I've heard there the hymns of Akhenaten and all of this stuff. What's the science and the power of Psalms? And I've heard you actually talk about empowering yourself with Psalms and even some Bible verses and what we've come to know as Bible prayers, the Lord's Prayer. I've heard you break that down. So could you shed some light on Psalms and all of that stuff?
Right. Actually, these are spells. Psalms was actually, like you said, the helm of Akhenaten, Uncle Akhenaten. And so he wrote spells. These power, words of power, or what is called hakamus or hesed sounds. And so whenever you say these particular psalms, these terms of Akhenaten, you will find that they mean certain things. You get the book, The Power of Psalms, or you can get
right.
My wife and our book called Hymns of Akhenaten. The Sons of Psalms. You can get that book from us. Like, for example, Psalms 1 when you read is to remove negativity. Okay? So each psalm symbolizes a certain thing that it does. All right. So, like for example, Psalms 23 symbolizes the embodied power. Okay.
Oh, say that one more time.
The embodiment of power.
Embodiment of power. Okay.
Right, because when you read Psalms, when you read the 23rd Psalm, it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He to lie down the green pastures and the still waters. He restored my soul for his name's sake. He gave me over to the valley of the shadow of death. I will send no evil. Thou with me. Thy rod, thy staff, thy company. That will be before the presence of my enemy. And notice my head before you. That cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of life. And I will dwell in the Lord forever. That is actually bringing in up. All right, and you're saying those particular verses. So actually, it's like the resurrection of the Kundalini, so hence the empowerment. Okay.
Okay.
Because the first thing I shall not want. And in other words, what the hell you talking about? You shall not want. You shall not want what? But what it's saying is that you didn't want any of the attributes of the Lord self.
Right, so you shall not be wanting, or you don't need any earthly thing to define your happiness, basically. When you say you shall not want, you don't need any earthly things to define your happiness, or to to make you feel complete, if you will. You know what I'm saying? What is in you is all you really need for this work.
Right. I know if my head will bore you, you already know about the Messiah by this time period, which is the activation of the third eye. And then got my cup over, which is talking about these chemicals, which is released from the pineal gland at that time period. You know what I'm saying? So it's telling you what is taking place or what you want to manifest You know what I'm saying? From diminishing your lower self and then resurrecting yourself into your higher self. That's what the whole Psalm 23 is about. It's about total empowerment. So that's what that symbolizes. This is why it's one of the most popular songs, out of all 150 of them. You know what I'm saying? Or the hymns of Hun and also of his father, Amenhotep. Right? So those songs was written by Amenhotep, who was Akhenaten's his father, as he symbolizes Amenhotep III, and Akhenaten, Anten, symbolizes Amenhotep IV. All right? So the third and the fourth son, they the ones that put those things together. So also, as we now trying to find further proof of them putting together the songs of Solomon, as well as also of Ecclesiastes and Proverbs.
Okay. So I heard you also talk about the Lord's Prayer.
Right.
And that, because, we hear anybody from the Bible who's anti-Bible, they hear that shit and you running. And
right.
So was I until I heard you break it down in the early 2000s. It was like, oh, okay, which it figures. So while we're here, could you break down the Lord's Prayer? And that's that I am that shall not want, that all white people say on TV right before they get it in their ass.
Right. Well, we talked about the 23rd Psalm as it's talking about the upscaling of energy, which is getting up to the point from the root pineal gland. Now you have the cosmic energy coming down to the pineal gland, down into the body now, and that is actually through the Lord's Prayer.